My name is Dave Rheins, and I am the founder and executive director of the Marijuana Business Association, which is a national trade group based in Washington and with offices and activities here in Oregon and Colorado and New York and all over the country as our revolution is spreading. So I am being given the somewhat inevitable or unenviable task of trying to present a 2017 industry outlook in 15 minutes. Those of you who know me know it usually takes me more than 15 minutes to introduce myself. So I will truncate those remarks and really just get into what is intended to be a top line. And so I know this is the entrepreneur track, and yet there are many investors here as well. And in many ways, this industry outlook is really designed to appeal to both of you in each of those camps. I really wanted to present what are the trends, what are the big drivers that are shaping the industry, that have shaped the industry, that will continue to shape the industry. And I think these are good guidelines in terms of where you should invest your time, and if you are an investor, where you should invest your money. So the first one is that, as we all know, 4 years has passed. We've now our second major national marijuana election, and marijuana is not becoming, it is already big business and getting bigger by the moment. We are more than $6 million in legal sales, some billion with a B, some 10 times that amount when you put in the gray or illegal markets. There are hundreds of millions of dollars today being collected in new tax revenues for participating states. There are thousands of new cannabis companies and tens of thousands of new jobs. So it is big and getting bigger. The North American market is expected to grow calendar year over year at about 33%. For the next 5 or 10 years. That's huge. It's the fastest growing segment in the industry and will continue to be. What are the big trends? One, consolidation and speculation. So the market is big and getting bigger. That means, wow, more and more people are coming into the fold, and yet profit margins remain painfully tight. We're already seeing smaller farmers go under. We're already seeing dispensaries, mom and pops who are rolling up for failure to pay their taxes, for failure to make a profit. They're rolling up into chains. That's particularly true in places like Colorado, where there hasn't been the kind of strict number of licenses controlled as you have in Washington State. And licensees are now creating national brands. We're seeing it not just with folks like Willie and Snoop Dogg, but you're really seeing these national brands come out and will continue to do that. Savvy companies are finding their niche, which means that the big buckets we once looked at, medical, recreational, hemp, or edibles, flowers, are being really granularly redefined, and new markets and segments and opportunities are emerging. Commercialization is perhaps the biggest of the drivers. Cannabis is a consumer packaged good. It's a CPG. As such, branding is essential. We come from a culture where most of us grew up thinking about strains or thinking about potency and those types of things. That is not the future. The future is not the Leafly strain guide. The future is consumer brands, consistent experience, both at the retail level and at the product level. Look for innovations in product categories. There are whole new opportunities that did not exist a year or two ago, and that are just getting huge. Transdermal patches, pet medications, topicals, one of my very favorites, any kind of what I would call nutraceuticals. These are whole new industries that were not part of your daddy's marijuana, were not part of the 60s revolution, and are not defined in the popular culture. And so folks, even those of us who are longtime cannabis consumers, will go into retail and see products they do not know, brands they do not understand, and they will be confused. And so commercialization, packaging, messaging really matters, and professionalism, not in just the way that your product hits the market, but in how you operate, how you manifest your presence in our mainstream culture. This is huge for us. High technology, pardon the pun, but this is a high-tech revolution. When you have a marketplace where there is not enough commercial credit available, that means that participants are capitally constrained. They are not able to invest in people, intellectual property, and therefore they must invest in technology to help them maintain scalability, profitability, viability. And so these are the areas that if I were looking to start a business or if I were looking to invest my dollars, I would look at testing and lab standards. I would look at the seed to sale and point of sale technology at retail. And yeah, here's one where there are literally dozens and dozens of major players competing, but there is no standard yet. And each one of these solutions is looking at a state-by-state solution, and ultimately we're going to move into a federal system. And so an exchange or a common platform is absolutely necessary and is going to happen. Big ag technologies. Gosh, you know, when you are running bigger and bigger farms for smaller and smaller profits, when the wholesale price keeps going down and the retail price as well, and competition is increasing, and oh, by the way, we have California and Nevada and some other markets coming on, which may or may not impact what happens here in Oregon. I'm going to suggest they do. Big ag technology is absolutely crucial. Here's a case where you can look at traditional agriculture. The technology that exists, it's just a question of applying it to this new industry. And then business intelligence and analysis. For the fastest growing industry in America, our BI is pitifully inadequate. We don't know what's happening. Our mainstream business press is not adequately covering what's happening in this marketplace, in part because it's so fragmented. It's happening on a state-by-state, local level, and in fact, because it's so technical, and but mostly because there's still the social stigma and resistance to getting the proper amount of coverage. That will all change in the next couple of years. Green and clean, this is a trend that I would definitely invest in, definitely explore if I were making a product or looking to service this market. We have not yet developed a common quote-unquote organic standard for our products. Pesticides continue to be our industry's black eye. It's not just this country, it's happening in Canada as well. Essentially, we have quote-unquote organic farmers who are suggesting they use no pesticides, and yet testing reveals that their product is full of pesticides. This only undermines our credibility as marketers, our credibility to the government, and our viability to self-regulate. We cannot allow this to stand. And lastly, green and clean is a market opportunity, much the same way that it touched organic foods, or much the same way that you're looking at health and beauty aids in mainstream aisles. You will see the quality of our product as a major differentiator. Market segmentation. Here's a case where the first thing is we're looking at a cannabis convention, and yet from my mind, this is a horizontal revolution. It touches many industries. It's not just one industry, and we're going to start by necessity to need to address this in segments. So the consumer packaged goods, the CPG market, is a retail market. And there we're going to need to focus on what's happening with the consumer, what's happening with the consumer experience, what's happening with the normalization of cannabis integrated into the mainstream. How do we deal with this in marketing and media and community? These are huge issues and will continue down their own separate path. Medical marijuana, from my standpoint, has already started to break away from our mom and pop revolution, and I am going to suggest to you that in this country, healthcare is the biggest issue. It brought down a president, it brought down an administration. It's something that we're fighting today, and we will not have legal cannabis as a medicine unless we have the FDA, unless we have big pharma, unless we have hospitals and insurance companies participating. And that means for most of us, that's not a big opportunity, I'm sorry to say, but that's where it was going. That's where I would invest my money. Hemp industrial, this is the big prize. It's not as fun as recreational or commercial cannabis, but hemp, industrial hemp, food and fuel and fabrics, construction materials, medicines. It touches all of the individuals. It is what one of the drivers of our first industrialization. The country was founded on hemp. It's hardly objected to at all in any circles whatsoever, outside of DuPont perhaps. And so hemp is coming, and it's coming in a big way, and it's coming mainstream. So, how am I doing? That was pretty good for 15 minutes, huh? So with 5 minutes left, and I can take some questions, really I end it with this. This is my latest trade campaign, and it says the marijuana business is amazing. Yes, it's an amazing business, but it's nearly impossible to succeed without some help. People helping people to the road to prosperity. That is what this industry is about. That is what this conference is about, and I'm happy to kick that off because the defining moment here is this, that as you look to invest your dollars, as you look to build your career in legal cannabis, I'm here to tell you that the most important thing you can do is networking. The most important thing you can do is develop reputation. The most important things you can do is maintain integrity and confidence. The businesses that you work for, the products that you vend, the roles that you play, the companies themselves that you participate in today will not be in existence, most of them, in a year or two. So what that means is that all those things will go away, but you will still stay here, right? And so what will define this industry will be the people in this room, will be the relationships that you build, will be the hard work that you do, will be the bridges that you build and not the ones you burn. And so I think the biggest trend for Oregon or for anyone looking to play in this market is align yourself with those best counselors, those hire the best intellectual capital, the best talent that you can, and focus on excellence, focus on the long term. That's the only thing that I can truly predict with my crystal ball. I'd love to take questions. Yes, sir.
You made a remark towards the end about something that was not going to be here in a year or two. Could you make a few examples of what those are?
Sure, yeah, companies that will not be here in a year or two. Let's take any of those categories that we've talked about. So we've been doing the MJBA for, this is our 5th year, 4 years. And I can tell you that some of the biggest players who kicked off 4 years ago, who had said that they were going to be the Microsoft or the McDonald's of marijuana, are not in business and not vending. I can tell you that there are innumerable number of farms that are rolling up because they are losing money. I can tell you that there are retailers who are going out of business because they are not paying their taxes or are, the state of Oregon is having trouble licensing, fulfilling all of its licensees because of the regulatory schema. There's a lot of people running out of dough is the bottom line. And so, and the second thing is technology. I mentioned technology, and yet because of lack of capitalization, we're not able to build a Microsoft or a Intel enterprise level solution for this marketplace. And so you've seen a lot of little solutions, point of sale, inventory management, communications, what have you, directories. These things are munging together, and these companies are pulling together.
So is this an adjustment then, sort of due to so many early adopters?
Absolutely,
all of a sudden,
yeah. This is absolutely typical of any kind of emerging marketplace. So I was part of the .com thing. I'm an old AOL, Time Warner guy, and you know, going through that process of acquiring a number of companies. In that case, we were overcapitalized, right? We had the public markets to rely upon, and so there was all the money, and those players went out and acquired people. We acquired staffs, and we acquired technology with the notion not of maintaining a CompuServe or a Netscape or a Winamp, all of which we acquired while I was there, but to acquire the teams and the technology so that we might make our current products more viable. Yes, sir.
It's still all cash business, so it's still all cash, so how and when will that change?
Well, still is all cash. You're seeing, you're seeing a number of little walk-ups. So you have folks like PayQuick who are out there with an intermediary solution. You've got folks in Colorado, Mechanics, which is starting to do some merchant services stuff. You have under, the DOJ guidelines, there is some clearance for banks, and in fact, I just did a report in our MJ Headline News, which we run, that all the big banks are in fact doing business with cannabis. They're just not talking about it. They're not broadcasting it. So again, if you have money, it's not difficult to get money. And if you have money, you probably have a banking relationship which will probably not be jeopardized for these investments. If you are looking for money and all you have is your cannabis business, you're gonna be forced to find friends and family. Okay, time's up. I'll give one more. Yes, sir.
Yeah, branding. You can't trademark.
Sure you can.
Oh,
And sure you can. And we've got IP. We're going to talk about that. You're talking about on a federal level. But branding isn't always just protection, brother. You know, branding is also in establishing an instant shortcut to consumer satisfaction and constancy of product. The problem in branding is when I go to a Colorado dispensary and buy a Willie's joint, it may or may not be the same flavor despite the strain as what I get in Seattle or what I get in Portland. That's branding without constancy. But we are seeing that those brands are selling more. I'm at the end of my time. I would welcome any discussion further on, but thank you again for coming out and for listening. I'm Dave at mjba.net if you have any questions.